alongside another Korean film icon. Scientists in South Africa are raising the alarm on yet another new COVID-19 variant that is spreading rapidly in parts of the country. Experts say the B11529 variant has an unusually high number of mutations with more than 30, and that South Africa's healthcare system may feel the pressure in the next few days or weeks. They add the mutations could result in immune evasion and enhanced transmissibility, but more studies are needed. The World Health Organization will meet again today to discuss the variant currently classified as under monitoring. The WHO has a reminder for everyone as it may take a few weeks to understand the variant's impact.
Researchers are getting together to understand where these mutations are and what that potentially may mean for our diagnostics, our therapeutics, and our vaccine. But it is something to watch. Everybody that's out there needs to understand that the more this virus circulates, the more opportunities the virus has to change, the more mutations we will see. Every single one of you watching has a role to play in driving transmission down, as well as protecting yourself against severe disease and death. So get vaccinated when you can. Make sure you receive the full course of your doses and make sure you take steps to reduce your exposure.
The South African health minister says the new variant has so far been detected in the country in Botswana as well as in Hong Kong after a traveler came from South Africa. The minister adds it is still unclear where the variant first emerged. Now, amid rising COVID-19 cases in Europe because of the Delta variant, the United Kingdom is not taking any chances, now banning flights from 6 African countries over the new variant. UK officials say South Africa, Namibia, Lesotho, Botswana, Eswatini, and Zimbabwe are now included in the travel red list. That means British and Irish citizens or residents arriving home from these African countries must undergo a 10-day hotel quarantine at their own expense. Australia would also consider imposing travel restrictions on South Africa if needed, but the Australian health minister says his country is not at this stage yet.
As we did with flights from India, when there was the emergence of the Delta variant and a massive spike. At this point in time, there's very little traffic directly between South Africa and Australia. We also happen to be very, very highly vaccinated, but we'll continue to be flexible, and when tough decisions need to be made, we haven't shied away in the past and we won't shy away in the future.
Here at home, the government is keeping an eye on this new coronavirus variant. Malacanang says agencies are in close coordination with the World Health Organization for updates. The government says it is ready to implement any changes in protocols if necessary.
Patuloy pa rin yung ating pakikipag-ugnayan sa WHO, no? And we await any advisory coming from the WHO, especially kung ide-declare ba itong variant of interest or variant of concern. Pero that being said, nakatutok naman po tayo, ang DOH, ang IATF dito sa concern na yan. We are monitoring any developments on the ground. Patuloy pa rin ang ating genomic surveillance.
This early infectious diseases experts are advising caution. Dr. Jean Solante says people need to remain vigilant while keeping health protocols, as COVID variants will always be a threat even with the ongoing vaccinations. Solante adds there is a need to monitor borders and strictly implement screening and monitoring of incoming travelers. But for public health reform advocate Dr. Tony Leachon, it is better to ban foreign travelers from South Africa and other countries with reported cases of the B11529 variant and review the green list countries, especially with the holiday season fast approaching. Leachon says failure to impose travel bans led to case surges and prolonged severe lockdowns in the past. While all eyes are on the potential threat of yet another rapidly spreading variant, COVID-19 transmission in the Philippines continues to go down. Health officials report less than 1,000 new cases for the third day in a row, with 863 more people catching the virus. The overall count is now over 2.83 million. Total deaths, however, breached the 48,000 mark after 142 patients died of COVID-19. Recoveries stand at 2.76 million. The country also marks the 14th straight day since it has maintained its positivity rate below 5%. Today's figure is at 2.5%, down from 2.8% yesterday. The World Health Organization has set the 5% benchmark to know when a country has controlled the pandemic. The government says it may not be declaring that just yet, citing a possible resurgence. As authorities strike to prevent another spike in infections, the government is rolling out a 3-day national vaccination program. It hopes to inoculate at least 15 million Filipinos from Monday to Wednesday next week. What can we expect from this massive rollout? Here's Carolyn Bonkin with the details.
Melvin Mendoza and Elizabeth Morelia are not yet vaccinated against COVID-19. Melvin was not able to get his shot before leaving Batangas for Manila.
Bukid po kasi yan, ay biglaan po ang pagpunta po dito. Hindi na po nagawang bakuna doon.
While Elizabeth says she still hasn't heard from her doctor.
Iniisip ko kasi baka lumala yung sakit ko eh. Okay lang magpabakuna ako kung alam ng doktor ko.
Melvin and Elizabeth are among the 15 million people the government hopes to tap in the 3-day vaccination program next week. There will be over 12,000 vaccination sites nationwide, including malls, churches, mobile bakuna buses, fast food chains, hospitals, and schools. It's open to the unvaccinated, partially vaccinated, and those who are qualified for a booster shot or an additional dose, ages 12 and up. Walk-ins are allowed, and local governments are encouraged to accept residents from other places. Just present a valid ID plus medical certificate for those with comorbidity and vaccination card for booster shot. Check the schedule with your local government.
Magsisimulang na mas maaga. Meron mga panggabi. A few will consider the bakuna nights.
Government and private employees are excused from work as long as they present proof of vaccination on that day. The National Vaccination Operations Center chief reiterates, general population is not yet allowed to get a booster shot and should not take advantage of the vaccination drive to get unapproved additional doses. The government hopes to drive the vaccine coverage in every locality to 70%. For now, only Metro Manila is almost fully vaccinated. Majority has only about 30% fully immunized, with the Bangsamoro region at the bottom with only about 11% fully vaccinated.
We have special focus for BARM and the other areas that are low performing. Nag-mobilize na rin ng sarili ang ating Ministry of Health ng BARM para mas mapataas pa yung kanilang pagbabakuna. Pero we are also focusing on high-yield areas. Yung mga areas na matataas ang population.
But just days ahead of the massive vaccination campaign, some local governments are facing a dilemma.
Ang problema, baka naman daw walang pumunta. May mga hesitancy in some of the areas. Yung iba nahirapan na kumuha ng additional vaccinators at mag-open ng vaccine sites because of their geographic location.
Volunteers and health workers will continue visiting hard-to-reach areas and indigenous communities over the weekend to educate them about the safety and benefits of vaccination in hopes of convincing them to take the shot next week. Caroline Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
Almost 2 weeks since they were arrested in Davao City, family executives Mohit and Twinkle Dargani appeared before the Senate in its hearing on the allegedly anomalous supply deals. They denied trying to escape the country last November 14th. Our correspondent Paolo Barcelon joins us live for more. Paolo, what did the Dargani siblings say? Did they mention or talk about why they were in Davao City?
Yes, Pia. Mohit Dargani said they were in Davao City to see his mother and sister, who he claims is suffering from a mental health condition. Mr. Dargani even turned emotional in describing why they were there and said his mother felt safe in Davao City. Dargani also told senators the plane they used for their flight from Davao was a plane rented by his friend, the cost of which he said was around 35 to 55,000 US dollars. At first, Pia, Dargani did not identify this friend, but he later named him as a certain Gary Wong, a Singaporean businessman. Dargani denied they were trying to escape. Both Dargani siblings were arrested last November 15, and Mohit was caught on video trying to run away from Senate security personnel. But he explained he was only trying to hug his mother and not run away from arresting officers. In the meantime, Family Director Lincoln Ong admitted to smuggling a phone while being detained inside the Senate premises. Ong apologized for the incident, while Blue Ribbon Committee Chair Senator Richard Gordon said Ong can communicate with his family, quote, within reasonable hours, unquote. And Pia, if I may just add, we did confirm that Michael Yang, the former presidential economic advisor, did not attend today's hearing. He sent a letter of excuse to the Blue Ribbon Committee through his counsel attorney, Raymond Fortun. Back to you, Pia.
Paolo, how did the Darganis end up in Davao, and what was their planned route?
Pia, Mr. Dargani said in this hearing that's still ongoing that they arrived in Davao City between All Saints Day and All Souls Day, which is November 1 and 2. He said they traveled by land from Manila and then took a ferry to Davao City. Dargani claimed they lived in a subdivision in Davao City and can freely move around. Pia.
Did the senators ask the Darganis about their counsel, Daryl Valles?
Yes, Pia, they did. Mr. Dargani said Attorney Valles has been their family's lawyer since August, but Senator Panfilo Lacson quizzed Dargani over his affiliation with Valles, who, according to a Philippine news agency article, was still working for the House of Representatives. But Dargani said Valles told him he resigned last August. Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman Senator Richard Gordon said they will check if Valles is still working at the lower house. Back to you, Pia.
Paolo Barcelon there reporting. More stories ahead. The Pagadian pushes back its decision on one of the petitions opposing presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos's bid for the top post. And how should Filipino voters prepare with only less than 6 months before the polls? Find out when we return.
Linsky General Merchandise, San Pedro District, Pagadian City. Hatbang sa balay sa mga pawaran kaniadto na maligya sa mga makina o piyesa sa mga nagkalain-laing sakyanan. Sama sa 10-wheeler, forward, elf, bungo ug daghan pang uban. Tag-iya ug tagdumala mao si Madam Arlene Solihon Fernandez ug si handsome boy Jesse Fernandez. Ang pinakailado nga surplus center sa Pagadian City, Zamboanga del Sur. Linsky General Merchandise.
Bang bang.
RPN DXKP Pagadian, ang inyong Radyo Ronda. RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. Live to the world, pinaagi sa FB page. Karon, mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play og Apple Store, YouTube og Twitter. Alang sa mas kipakuskan nga mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran og kalingawan. Ang mas kipakuskan nga inyong Radyo Ronda. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. A resounding majority of Filipinos believe the country should firmly stand up to China over the West Philippine Sea. Manila insists Beijing's claim of a commitment to pull out our makeshift military outpost in the Ayungin Shoal is nothing but erroneous. But where did this come from? Tristan Odalo digs up the archives.
China asks the Philippine side to honor its words and remove the military vessel that are docked.
As the Philippines denies China's claim that there's a commitment to remove BRP Sierra Madre from Ayungin Shoal, research shows that this is not the first time Beijing brought it up. In a press briefing in 2014, Beijing said that Manila made a commitment to tow away the vessel in 1999 on, quote, many occasions. The promise was allegedly made during the term of former President Joseph Estrada. China also floated a consensus between the Philippines and China to solve South China Sea dispute in 2008 during the term of then-President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. The Foreign Affairs Department has repeatedly denied the existence of such commitment to remove BRP Sierra Madre from Ayungin. A senior diplomat and one of the members of the Philippine legal team for the arbitration case against China during the term of late President Noynoy Aquino reveals that Beijing has attempted to insist on this supposed commitment many times, but it was rejected by the Philippine government.
When this was put on the table as the head of as leading in those discussions, I pointed out in very clear terms that there is no commitment, there is no agreement, no Philippine officials are empowered or authorized to do that, and from the perspective of facts, we have never done that. We have checked on our records, nothing of that sort happened.
Philippine Association for Chinese Studies President and Professor Romel Banlawi, who also used to work with the Defense Department in 1999, said that the idea of removing the grounded vessel was discussed but no official decision or commitment was made.
There was no commitment to remove it. If there was such thing as removing it, I think it was not an official commitment.
Amid conflicting claims between the Philippines and China over Ayungin Shoal, majority of Filipinos believe, based on a recent survey, that the country should further assert its rights in the West Philippine Sea and join forces with allies in enforcing the 2016 arbitral award. In a commission survey, 82% of Filipinos believe that the next administration should assert the country's rights in the West Philippine Sea. The same survey shows that Filipinos want the next set of leaders to strengthen the country's military capability, conduct more joint patrols, and implement the Visiting Forces Agreement or VFA and the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement with the United States. Meantime, former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario says that an attack by China on BRP Sierra Madre would trigger the Mutual Defense Treaty between the Philippines and the United States. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
The Defense Secretary of former President Estrada back in 1999 also denies the supposed commitment with Beijing. Former Senator Orly Mercado said Manila's focus that time was to establish presence in our waters. The first of 4 cases against Bongbong Marcos's presidential bid faces further delays as the Commission on Elections Second Division wants to resolve 2 pending issues before making a decision. Marcos's lawyers and the group of human rights defenders represented by lawyer Theodore Te faced off in a virtual pre-conference today to agree on details of the case. But the division's clerk informed both parties that Commissioners Socorro Inting and Antonio Co will first resolve pending motions before the resolution. COMELEC spokesman James Jimenez says the first is lawyer Howard Calleja's motion to join as petitioners of the case and Marcos's request for face-to-face hearings.
Yung effect ng pending incidents is to push back the time when we will tell them to submit their memoranda. Mukhang matataglan ng konti kasi kailangan pa yun desisyonan. There will be oral arguments if the division feels that there is a need for that.
By December, the PO body's second division will rule whether or not to kick Marcos out of the presidential race. The ruling may be appealed before the COMELEC Bank and eventually the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, a group of martial law victims held a protest outside COMELEC's headquarters in Manila. The campaign against the return of the Marcoses and martial law, or KARMA, expressed support for the first petition against Bongbong's presidential run. The group earlier filed its own petition to disqualify Marcos or cancel his certificate of candidacy. Presidential aspirant Senator Ping Lacson has filed a resolution condemning what he says is China's bullying in the West Philippine Sea. In the resolution, Lacson also urged the government to strengthen the country's position in the region by forging defense and security agreements with other nations and consistently invoking the Philippines' internationally recognized rights. He also called for a comprehensive development plan that includes concrete projects to improve the quality of life and delivery of public services on Pag-asa Island in Palawan. The island has been surrounded by Chinese vessels despite repeated diplomatic protests from the government. Another presidential aspirant, Labor leader Leody de Guzman, pushes for the representation of more workers in Congress. De Guzman appeals to the COMELEC to grant accreditation to Nurses United so it can join the party list race next year. He argues health workers suffered gross injustice during this pandemic with delayed benefits this 2020 and not enough allocation for them in next year's budget. And take a look at Senator Manny Pacquiao's visit to Bislig, Surigao del Sur. A crowd of people there gathered as the presidential aspirant handed out clothes. People were seen chanting Pacquiao's name without wearing face masks and practicing physical distancing. The 2022 elections are fast approaching, and more groups are launching initiatives to help Filipinos choose the best leaders for the country. Our correspondent Stanley Gahete has more.
Helping Filipino voters become more discerning in the next elections. This is one of the goals of the newly created Facebook page, Botong Di Bobo, an initiative of the Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal Parish Church in Project 4, Quezon City.
Bumuo kami ng isang grupo na magtataguyod sa isang voter education na straightforward, unapologetic, at mga tipong tatapat sa trolls. Kasi parang hindi umuubra yung vote wisely, di ba?
The campaign is based on the 16 Filipino values found in the preamble of the Philippine Constitution. Volunteers want social media users to have a clear thought and a high standard in choosing their next leaders.
Inaral muna namin yung kilos or attitude or behavior ng mga trolls at mga strategy ng campaign ng mga politiko. So that's why ganun ang style ng Botong Di Bobo, matapang. Dapat ang Catholic Church o ang simbahan ay hindi lang pumoposisyon sa safe, kundi dapat ito yon, nilalabanan yung mga tiwali, nilalabanan yung tinatapatan yung mga maling campaign, pati lalo na yung mga fake news.
Gen Z volunteers are also involved in the campaign.
It's really important na may representation yung youth when it comes to voter education kasi mostly voters are comprised of the youth.
Botong Di Bobo campaign started July this year. Parish priests from Cubao, Quezon City encourage churchgoers to evaluate all aspirants seeking elective posts. There are also initiatives coming from NGOs helping Filipinos choose the most qualified candidates for local and national positions. Good Gov PH initiative Simulan Natin 2022 is a youth-led non-partisan movement that aims to enhance the political participation of the youth and community-based organizations throughout the electoral process. It has provided a series of fora and webinars across the country and produces audio-video materials to educate Filipinos about good governance.
We think that voter engagement is a stepping stone towards active political engagement. So, voting is not end-all, be-all, but it's a start.
For political scientist Froy Calilung, voter education efforts from non-partisan groups are important to influence more Filipinos to choose wisely.
There are a lot of factors that affect voter behavior. One of which is yung tinatawag nating core commitment nila to their chosen candidates. Maaaring magamit itong mga inisyatibo na to para hikayatin ng ating mga kababayan na magpalit nung kanilang mga napupusuan habang papalapit ang halalan.
With the May 2022 polls fast approaching, church and NGOs believe their efforts matter and will surely make a difference.
Kapag bumoto ka ng hindi bobo, panalo yung bayan natin.
Stanley Gahete, CNN Philippines.
When we come back on Newsnight, a sneak peek at a new Korean thriller starring Train to Busan actor Gong Yoo. And SB19 goes trending again for a song that's dominated a major international chart. Details after the break.
DXKP Pagadian. yan. Ang inyong Radyo Ronda RPN. RPN. Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. Live to the world. Pinaagi sa FB page. Karon, mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play og Apple Store, YouTube og Twitter. Alang sa mas kipakuskan ng mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran og kalingawan. Ang mas kipakuskan nga inyong Radyo Ronda.
Denver, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Welcome back. Filled with the K-drama stars from Gongyu to Bay Duna, a new Netflix film takes viewers on a trip to outer space. But it won't be smooth sailing for the crew. Based on an award-winning short film, The Silent Sea tells the story of an elite team's dangerous mission on the moon to find a solution to dwindling resources back on Earth.
이 안에 뭐가 있을 거라고 생각하는 거예요?
답이요. 도대체 이게 뭐가 어떻게 된지 모르겠네.
The movie premieres on Netflix right in time for the holidays this December 24th. It is a happy weekend for SB19 fans who have reason to celebrate from today until Sunday. The group just hit #1 on the Billboard Hot Trending Songs chart with their single, Bazinga. The milestone comes just a day ahead of their 3rd anniversary when they are set to kick off their virtual concert, Our Zone. SB19 will be the first music act to hit the Araneta Coliseum stage since the pandemic began, with their shows for Saturday and Sunday nights. And that is it for now. It is 29 days before Christmas. Join me again on news.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pio Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Have you been losing more hair than usual over the past year or so? Well, you're not alone. This pandemic has brought on a lot of stress that manifests itself in more ways than one, and it's hair loss for some of us. In fact, Google searches for hair loss, according to a data science firm, has significantly increased in the last 12 months. The good news is this type of hair loss is usually temporary and usually resolves itself in a few months. Hair loss is part of a natural cycle, which means that seeing hair on your brush or comb is usually not something to worry about. So how much hair loss is considered normal? And when should we start worrying? Here on MedTalk Health Talk, I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and we're here to build a healthier future for you. Losing a certain amount of hair every day is normal, but if it seems like it's more than usual, it can cause a lot of worry. Our guests are here today to tell us more. Joining us is Dr. Julieta Peralta Arambulo. She's a dermatologist and hair transplant surgeon from the Medical City Wellness and Aesthetic Institute and founder of Asian Hair Restoration Center. Also with us is Dr. Marivi Dizon. She's the section head of pediatric dermatology at the UST Hospital. For our viewers, did you know that your scalp has more than 100,000 hair follicles? And it's normal to lose around 50 to 100 strands per day. For those with longer hair, it may even be more noticeable. I'll start the discussion with Dr. Arambulo. Doktora, when should a person have concern for hair loss? Because maraming tao, maybe they see some strands of hair sa una nila, pagkagising nila, maybe in the shower drain after taking a shower. When should this be a cause of concern though?
Actually, when they're starting to lose the hair, that is a concern already. It's important that they consult so that we know we can diagnose what is the hair loss condition and we give the proper diagnosis. It's important that the patient understands the difference between hair shedding and hair loss. When it's a hair shedding, this is manifested by yung maraming nang nalulugas, nakikita nila sa pillows, sa brush nila, and sa anywhere. This is just a temporary condition.
Now, since we have a lot of hair, losing maybe a bit of hair through shedding every day may not have an effect on our appearance, but there may be a more significant reason for your hair loss when you start seeing your scalp or start seeing bald spots. Dr. Arambulo, let's discuss some of the reasons why magkakaroon na ng hair loss ang isang tao.
There are many factors affecting the hair growth, okay? So number one now during this time is the physical illness. It's a form of stress, no? But the common form of stress that most patients would come for consultation is the mental or emotional stress.
Because that's a good point, because so many people now are stressed over the past year and a half, and it's important to know that physical and psychological stress can actually cause hair loss. This can also, though, happen to children. Kaya I'd like to ask Dr. Marivi, maybe a lot of parents may see this in their child and cause them to be really anxious. Could you explain how this connection could affect children?
So right now, our situation, this historical pandemic condition that we are all locked in, I will use that word, is causing stress also for the children. All of a sudden, you have very social kids suddenly yanked away from their peers. They cannot play with them, and they are glued to their screens, to their laptops, to their computer the whole day because of online learning. This is not normal to them. They are now as well stressed, and there are stress hormones that are creating an impact on those hair follicles. So essentially, there will be the pathological hair loss.
Dr. Marivi, you make an excellent point when you talk about nutrition, because there are actually some studies that show that zinc and iron deficiency are some of the nutritional deficiencies that are linked to hair loss. But aside from that, what other nutrients can cause increased hair fall to adults as well as children?
Aside from zinc, well, also protein deficiency is also going to create hair loss. Aside from that, you also have niacin deficiency. And, you know, it's not only the deficiency of the vitamins, but also overly giving the patients hypervitaminosis. Excellent example is vitamin A can create also hair problems.
Hormonal changes can also be one of the reasons why your hair is falling out more than usual. Dr. Arambulo, can we talk about some of these and how are they different from men and women? I'd like to talk about some of the hormone changes, especially the male and female pattern hair loss. Let's start with that, Muna.
In male, you can see from mild to more severe involvement of the top area of the scalp, and that's very obvious. You see them walking around, and those are the inherited type of hair loss, which is permanent. In female, we call it a hormone-induced hair loss. It's called female pattern hair loss, and this is caused also by progesterone, but estrogen also may take a role in hair loss in women, because we have both the estrogen and the progesterone.
Now, in order to determine if you're losing too much hair, you can perform a test at home called the pull test. Dr. Marivi, how is this done? Can you tell us how much hair pulled out is normal in a pull test?
For teleconsultations, we have no other recourse but to do that. We just ask the parents or the patients to grab just a few pieces of their hair and gently pull away from the scalp. If they get more than 3 or 5 strands of hair at that single pull, then that can already be considered as something, a potential problem.
Dr. Marivi, going back to children and hair loss, is there a certain age group that we see hair loss being more common?
Absolutely. You know, even as an infant, the hair loss occurs 4 to 6 months after the infant is born, because even inside our mothers, we already start hair loss, hair shedding, the physiological hair shedding. So those are just the physiological types of hair loss that one needs not to get worried over.
Now, if you're concerned about how much hair you're losing, it's always best to consult your board-certified dermatologist. When we return, we'll talk about hair loss as a result of serious medical conditions. We're your connection to healthcare. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Is the only exterior part of your body that's been subjected to such a wide range of use as well as abuse. And many of us have a love-hate relationship with the appearance of our hair, but looks aside, hair has many functions. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. We're together in health. Most of us do all sorts of things to our hair to change the way it looks, but sometimes it can be damaging. Dr. Marivi, let's take a look at the function of hair and why it's important that we take care of it.
Basically, hair, weather-wise, is a protection from the cold. We're not talking about the cold in the Philippines, but now, more importantly, hair is very, it's something that society looks at. It's a cosmetic issue. And we know that if we appear to be acceptable to those people around us, then it psychologically pumps us up.
Dr. Arambulo, let's talk about basic hair care right now, no? So what's your advice on yung magandang pag-alaga ng buhok so it can prevent further problems later on? How often should our viewers wash their hair? What type of products should they avoid? Those things.
For hair care, your hair is oily, we just advise the patient to wash the hair more often. But if it's dry, you add moisturizer, and of course, you don't subject your hair to many chemical treatments and no application of too hot treatments because it is damaging to the hair.
Now, one condition that causes your hair to fall out, often in clumps, the size and shape of a coin, is alopecia areata. It's a common autoimmune disorder that often results in unpredictable hair loss. And for most cases, the hair loss is nothing more than a few patches, although for some, it can lead to complete loss of hair on the scalp or even the entire body. Now, the condition can affect anyone regardless of age or gender, but most cases occur before the age of 30. Dr. Marivi, what are the symptoms of alopecia areata? Are these symptoms same with adults as well as children?
Alopecia, the symptom is the patient loses hair. And more frequently, whether the patients or the parents or the patients themselves, they will always come to our clinics already complaining and suddenly notice that there's this big splotch of hair that is gone from their scalp.
Now, what's the general cause of this, Dr. Marivi?
Whatever underlying comorbid or condition that the patient has, the T lymphocytes are attacking the hair follicle. So it can range from some endocrine problem like a thyroid-related issue, hypothyroidism. It can also be some autoimmune condition, connective tissue disorders such as the lupus. But again, I will always emphasize malnutrition is also something that we take to heart, that what would cause the hair loss or even alopecia.
Some forms of alopecia can be managed very effectively as long as it is treated early. Dr. Arambulo, what is the management for someone who comes to you with alopecia?
Okay, so first know the problem, and majority of this hair shedding problem would just need medicines that can stimulate the hair growth, and very much available and FDA approved is minoxidil to stimulate the hair growth, and then the low-level laser treatment also that can stimulate the hair to prolong the growth phase. But in alopecia areata, we used to give also topical steroids, but in severe cases might need to give injectable steroids because it has anti-inflammatory effect. And in a very severe cases, I offer patients the cellular treatment now available.
Now, trichotillomania is hair loss from repeatedly pulling on your hair. Now, traction alopecia can be developed when your hair is often in a tight ponytail, bun, or braids, especially if you use chemicals or heat on your hair. Now, these conditions can be reversed if you stop pulling your hair, but if you don't catch it early, it may cause permanent hair loss. Now, Dr. Marivi, you talked about this earlier. I'd like to expound more about this. What could be the underlying condition why children would constantly pick on their hair enough to cause hair loss?
There's this strange sensation that occurs with an individual when their finger starts crossing the scalp hair and just simply pull away that hair strand. It's their stress reliever. There's this strange sensation of fulfillment when they have that pulling of hair away from the scalp. And sometimes they favor a particular area, but at times it can be on different regions of the scalp. That's one. Two, I'm glad you mentioned about the traction alopecia, because especially now that we're homebound, the use of hair bands are causing an unusual traction or pressure on those hair strands, and essentially is also creating that hair loss.
Now, taking good care of our hair is important, not just for how it looks, but for our health as well. More on this when we return. Your health is our mission. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. put tremendous stress on their hair, from styling to applying heat, and this may cause the hair to become thin, dry, or even brittle. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines, where your care always comes first. You can do a lot for your hair to minimize the damage that may lead to thinning as well as hair loss. Now, Dr. Arambulo, let's talk about some of the treatments for male or female pattern baldness. Siyempre, mahirap ito kasi because there is a genetic factor involved. But whenever someone comes to you with this problem, how do you manage this?
We first give the patient the available medical treatments. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, minoxidil and all the cellular treatments are available, the low-level laces. All they do is to stimulate the hair to grow, and it's best given during the early stage of androgenic alopecia or male pattern baldness, while the thinning hair is still there. My first recommendation is treat it with the available FDA medical treatments.
Grow back again. But let's talk about the surgical treatments naman, because I'm sure a lot of viewers are curious. Ang hair transplant surgery, those who underwent this, is the strength of the hair just as good as the original hair?
Hair transplant is the permanent solution to hair loss in male pattern baldness. Once transplanted, it's there already. It will remain because the hair, the dollar is from the back and sides of the scalp that is not affected by the hormone DHT. So even if you transplanted it to the areas affected by male pattern baldness, which is the top of the head, it will not be affected.
Dr. Marivi, I'd like to ask for the parents out there who are very anxious and worried about their kids' hair. What's your advice to them for their children to have very good and healthy hair?
For one, fear not. Basically, if we're going to ask for basic scalp care from the infants, number one, you have to use gentle cleansers, gentle shampoo. We have to keep in mind, especially in infants, that shampoo may run down the face and especially the eyes. We do not want a cleanser, a shampoo that's going to irritate a developing eye as well of an infant. So you have to make sure that it is a gentle baby cleanser or a gentle baby shampoo that you are using.
Thank you very much for joining us, dermatologist and hair transplant surgeon Dr. Julieta Peralta Arambulo and pediatric dermatologist Dr. Marivi Dizon. Losing a few strands of hair every day is somewhat normal, and if you're worried that you're losing more hair than usual, please talk to your board-certified dermatologist. Factors like stress, medication, and underlying medical conditions can all worsen hair loss. We want to be your partner for a lifetime of good health. And I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. This has been MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.